People keep asking me these days, Charlie, if you were starting over with just $1,000, what would you do? And let me tell you, that question, it reveals everything that is wrong with how people think about money. Everything. I am 99 years old now, and I've been thinking about this question a lot lately. Not because I need to start over, mind you, but because I see so many young people out there making the same mistakes I watched people make 70, 80 years ago, the same mistakes, over and over again. Let me take you back for a minute. When I was young, working with tiny amounts of money, I did pretty well. Through the next 10 years, my returns averaged about 50% a year. And I think they were 37 points better than the Dow or something like that. But here is what people don't understand when they hear that number. I was working with a tiny amount of money. That is critical. That changes everything. See, when you are working with $1,000 or even $10,000, the rules are completely different than when you are working with $1 million. The risks you can afford to take are different. The whole game is different. So when someone shows me one of these videos saying multiply your $1,000 by investing in the stock market, I want to ask them, do they even understand what they're saying? Because let us do the math together. Let us really think about this. Imagine you put that $1,000 into the stock market and let us say you get lucky, really lucky, and the market has a major upswing and brings back a return of 25% in the year. Now, this is 15% above average, and most professional investors would jump for joy getting a return like this. 25% in 1 year. That is extraordinary, but you know what that means for your thousands? It means you made $250 in a year. That is not going to change your life. It is just not that much money for the time it takes. And here is where it gets even worse. Let's say you decide to be safe and put it in a savings account. As of early 2023, the average return through a savings account is an extremely small 0.33%. You know what that means? Putting your money in a savings account for 5 years would give you a net total of $1,016. Yikes. In 5 years, you made $16, while you get a guaranteed return. You never build wealth this way. Never. What about these certificates of deposit everyone talks about? For those who don't know, these are basically like savings accounts, except that you can touch the money for a certain amount of time unless you want to pay a hefty fee. The average CD rate for a 5-year term is about 1.37%. Your $1,000 would grow to a measly $1,068. That is enough to buy you a nice pair of jeans or some new shoes, but who wants to wait 5 years just to do something like that? Now, I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, Charlie, you are being too pessimistic. What if I invest in the stock market and get that average 7% return everyone talks about? Okay, let us look at that. Even if you were to invest that money in the stock market for 5 years at an average return of 7%, you still only end up with $1,400. This is by far the best option of everything I just described. But it just one change your life. Are you starting to see the problem here? The problem ends with the vehicles. The problem is with the question itself. Let me tell you what I learned over decades of watching people try to get rich. Most people go through life using up a very small part of their potential. And so anything you do that invests in yourself, that is the best investment you can possibly make. That is what Warren says. And he is absolutely right. So here is what I'd actually do if I had $1,000 today and I was starting from scratch. I wouldn't put it in the stock market, not yet. I would put it in a savings account or a CD. Absolutely not. You know what I do? I invested in my own education. I invested in learning skills that can be of use to any company I work for now and in the future. Because the more valuable you are, the more you be paid. It is really simple when you think of it that way. I remember when I was young, just starting out in law. I didn't have much money, but you know what I had? I had books. Lots and lots of books. I spent whatever money I had on books. And you know what those books cost? Almost nothing. But what I learned from them, that was worth millions. In my whole life, I have known no wise people who didn't read all the time. None. You'd be amazed at how much Warren reads and how much I read. My children laugh at me. They think I am a book with a couple of legs sticking out. But here is the thing about investing in yourself that most people don't understand. It compounds just like money compounds. Knowledge compounds. The more you know, the more you can learn. The more skills you have, the more valuable you become. The more valuable you become, the more money you can earn. And the more money you can earn, the more you can invest. A famous quote from me that I want you to really think about goes like this. Develop into a lifelong self-learner. Through voracious reading, cultivate curiosity, and strive to become a little wiser every day. The more you learn, the more you grow, and the more you grow, the more your money and happiness will grow. Now, what kind of skills should you invest in? Here is where you have to think strategically. You want to look for skills that are highly sought after, but not many people have. Marketing and coding, for example. These are both becoming highly valuable assets in just about any industry. But let me tell you something even more important than which specific skills you choose. It is about how you think about the whole process. You can invest in yourself through things like books, webinars, seminars, or courses. The more skills you have, the more you be kept by companies, and the less likely you be laid off. And here is something else nobody talks about. When you invest in yourself, you're also investing in creating another income source. The great thing about this generation is that it is extremely easy to make another source of income because of the internet. The hard part is doing the work and lifting that business off the ground. But if you invest in your knowledge, then you can take action to create something with it. Then you can use the money you make from that to either invest in your business to grow it more. And when it makes even more money, you can invest it in the stock market. See how that works? Let me tell you about something Warren says that is absolutely critical to understand. He says, if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. And who wants to work their whole lives? Not many, I am sure. So yes, eventually, you want passive income. But here is what these financial gurus want to tell you. You can build meaningful passive income with $1,000. You just can You need to build that $1,000 into 10,000, and 10,000 into 100,000, and 100,000 into 1,000,000. And the fastest way to do that isn't through investment returns. It is through increasing your earning power. Now, let's say you've done that. Let's say you've invested in yourself. You've built up your skills. You are earning good money. And now you have $1,000 saved up and you plan on putting more money every month into investments. What then? Even then, you always want to keep investing in your education and growing yourself. That never stops. Never Warren. He is one of the best learning machines on this earth. His investing skills have markedly increased since he turned 65. If he had stopped with what he knew at earlier points, the record would be a pale shadow of what it is. I constantly see people rise in life who are not the smartest, sometimes not even the most diligent, but they are learning machines. They go to bed every night a little wiser than they were when they got up. And boy, does that help, particularly when you have a long run ahead of you. But okay, let's talk about putting money into actual investments. If you are going to do this, you need to understand something fundamental. Conservative investing and steady saving without expecting miracles is the way to go. Some people can figure out how to average twice the rate of return of the market. I can teach everyone else to do it. It is pretty difficult. When it comes to the stock market, for most people, the right way to invest is through index funds. Warren's been saying this for years. We've had 14 presidents, 7 Republicans, 7 Democrats. We've had world wars, we had 9/11, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis, we have all kinds of things. The best single thing you could have done way back in 1942 when I bought my first stock was just buy an index fund. Let me explain why with a story. Imagine you put all your funds into Tesla, but for some reason, the car battery on all the latest models just stops charging with no clear fix. This leaves thousands of people not able to drive their cars and potentially causes harmful accidents. There is no way to fix them except by replacing the entire car. Unfortunately, Tesla can afford to replace all these cars. And on top of that, they get hit with a bunch of lawsuits. This causes them to go bankrupt. Now you have your money in this company, and without a single fault of your own, you lose everything you have. Everything, but the opposite can happen too. Let's say Tesla manages to create a battery that charges twice as fast and can drive you double the distance on a single charge. This would boost their sales massively, and now the amount you invested doubles and shows no sign of slowing down. That is the thing about investing in individual companies. You can get massive returns, but it is also way more risky because if you don't make a good choice, you can lose everything. A good rule of thumb to follow is that if you don't have time to study companies and learn about investing, then it is best to avoid it altogether. There is more to investing than picking the next hype company. You know what I always say? Knowing what you don't know is more useful than being brilliant. And acknowledging what you don't know is the dawning of wisdom. This is where index funds come in. Index funds are essentially a basket of companies that you can invest in, meaning that you can skip the whole process of trying to find the next best company. Some examples are like investing in the general market, a specific sector like tech, or even companies that give dividends. The best part is that these funds are very easy to buy. In fact, they read just as simple as stocks. But one thing I have to tell you is that you are not guaranteed to make money when you invest, even with index funds. So always do your due diligence and don't blindly do what you are told. As a start, you can go with the general market funds, which are safe and reliable. It is a great beginner option. Two of the most popular choices are VU and SPY. These will give you exposure to the top 500 companies in the U.S. What you can expect is that if the U.S. economy rises, so will the fund, and if the economy goes down, then you can expect the fund to go down too. If you want to get involved with tech, you can go with VGT or QQQ. These will expose you to companies like Microsoft, AMD, or Google. If you want dividend payouts, then consider VIM or SDI. When you invest in these funds, you get exposure to a bunch of companies that pay you to invest in them. But here is the critical part that nobody talks about. When you are looking to invest in these funds, there is a way that generate the most bang for your buck. What you want to do is anytime you get a paycheck, you want to take a portion of it, like 10 to 15%, and automatically place it into your investment account. This way, you won't accidentally spend money you should be using for investing. As I famously said, or actually Warren said this, do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving. That is the whole game right there. Now, some people talk about real estate, and yes, of course, $1,000 is enough to buy a house that you can rent out to someone. But there are other options now thanks to the internet. You can use a crowdfunding real estate platform that allows you to place small amounts with other investors to fund real estate if the real estate makes money. So do you. If the property value goes up, you get more out of it too. These platforms primarily pay through passive income that is gained through rent. However, it is important to know that this money is liquid since it is in physical real estate. It is not as easy to sell a home as it is to sell a stock. You can also get access to indirect real estate through REITs or real estate investment trusts. With REITs, you invest in a company that invests in real estate, but it operates the same way. You get paid dividends from the money that comes in through rent and other sales, but without being tied up in physical properties. REITs also tend to pay higher dividends as the companies are required to give 90% of the profits to shareholders. But let me stop you right here and tell you something really important. If you have debt, especially high interest debt, you know what the best investment is. Paying off that debt, you can make progress in your financial life going around borrowing money at 18 or 20%. You can make a lot of money by lending it out at 18 or 20% over time if you can find anybody that is good that will borrow from you. But you don't want to be on the side of the equation that is always behind in life. Paying debt early is just like a return on investment. Let's say you have a 4% interest rate loan, like a car, mortgage, or student loan. If you pay it off a year early, then you've effectively made a 4% return, because that is one extra year you don't have to pay the bank. So if you are afraid to invest in the stock market right now or don't want to hop into real estate, then this is your next best bet. It will allow you to have much more cash available as you have fewer expenses every month. The faster you pay off debt, the less interest you have, and the more money you can keep in your pockets. Let me tell you about temperament for a minute, because this is really what it all comes down to. If you are not willing to react with equanimity to a market price decline of 50% 2 or 3 times a century, you are not fit to be a common shareholder, and you deserve the mediocre result you are going to get. Think about what that actually means. 50% declines. I've lived through them: 1929, 1932, 1973 to 74, the early 1990s, 2008. If you live long enough, you see them. And if you panic when they happen, if you sell at the bottom, you never build wealth. Never successful investing requires this crazy combination of gumption and patience, and then being ready to pounce when the opportunity presents itself. Because in this world, opportunities just don't long. You have to be very patient. You have to wait until something comes along which, at the price you are paying, is easy money. That is contrary to human nature, just to sit there all day long doing nothing, waiting. It is easy for us at Berkshire because we have a lot of other things to do. But for an ordinary person, can you imagine just sitting for 5 years doing nothing? You don't feel active, you don't feel useful, so you do something stupid. I succeeded because I have a long attention span. That is it. That is the whole secret. It is waiting that helps you as an investor. And a lot of people just can't stand to wait. Let me tell you what I think is going to matter in the coming years, in 2025, 2026, and beyond. The fundamentals never change. They never have. They never will. People are trying to be smart, and all I am trying to do is not be idiotic, but it is harder than most people think. It is remarkable how much long-term advantage people like us have gotten by trying to be consistently not stupid, instead of trying to be very intelligent. There must be some wisdom in the folks saying, it is the strong swimmers who drown. So if I were starting today with $1,000, here is exactly what I do, step by step. And I want you to really hear this. First, I take $300 and I buy books. Not just any books, but books about business, about investing, about psychology, about history. I read everything I could get my hands on, because the best investment you can make is in yourself. Second, I take another $300 and I invest it in learning a valuable skill, something that companies need, something that will make me more valuable in the marketplace. Marketing, coding, sales, does matter exactly what, as long as it is valuable and I can learn it relatively quickly. Third, I take $200. And I use it as seed capital to start some kind of side business. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated. Just something where I can provide value to people and earn money. The internet makes this easier than it has ever been. Fourth, I take the remaining $200 and I keep it as emergency cash, because you never know when an opportunity will come along and you want to be ready to seize it. And then, and this is critical, I commit to doing this every single month. Every paycheck I take 10 to 15% and I split it the same way. Investing in my education, investing in building skills, investing in building a business, and keeping some dry powder for opportunities. You know what would happen if you did this consistently for just 5 years? You'd be a completely different person. You'd have knowledge that 99% of people don't have. You'd have skills that are valuable in the marketplace. You'd probably have a business that is generating income. And you'd have saved up enough money that you could start making serious investments. That is how you multiply $1,000. Not by trying to get lucky in the stock market. Not by chasing the latest hot stock or cryptocurrency, but by investing in the one asset that will always appreciate if you put in the work yourself. The desire to get rich fast is pretty dangerous. Always has been. Always will be. But the desire to get rich slowly, through patience and discipline and continuous self-improvement. That is the only thing that has ever really worked. I am 99 years old now, and if there is one thing I've learned in all these years, it is this: spend each day trying to be a little wiser than you were when you woke up. Discharge your duties faithfully and well. Slug it out 1 inch at a time, day by day. At the end of the day, if you live long enough, most people get what they deserve. You want to deserve wealth. Then invest in yourself, become valuable, build skills, create value for others, save consistently. And when you've built up enough capital, invest it wisely and simple, boring index funds, and just sit on your ass for 40 years. That is the secret. That has always been the secret. And it has been hiding in plain sight this entire time.